Moving to Canada is a dream for many people around the world. With a high standard of living, a friendly population, and a strong economy, Canada is a popular destination for immigrants. However, navigating the Canadian visa system can be overwhelming, with more than 10 visa options and eligibility criteria to consider. If you've been thinking about moving to Canada and would like to know more about the different visa options that are available, then this video is for you. We are going to go through 5 major ways to move to Canada right now and the benefits of each of the visas. If you like this type of content, do subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on any new videos, and also like this video so that YouTube can show it to many more people who might actually benefit from it. Don't forget to grab your pen and paper or simply take screenshots when we get to the parts that you like the most. Without further ado, let's get into our video. The first option that we're going to take a look at is applying for a study visa. Canada is known for its world-class universities and colleges, making it an attractive destination for international students. A study permit allows foreign nationals to study in Canada and potentially obtain a postgraduate work permit to stay in the country. To qualify, you need to have an acceptance letter from a Canadian educational institution and demonstrate that you have sufficient funds to support yourself during your studies. There are many scholarship videos on this channel that also go through opportunities to study in Canada, so you can watch them right here. Although popular, the study visa route is actually one of the most expensive options. Tuition fees can cost anything from between 13 to 28,000 Canadian dollars per year, and the minimum that you need for your living expenses is usually around 10,000 Canadian dollars. With this type of visa, you can travel with your family, but you then also need an additional 4,000 Canadian dollars per family member. As a spouse, you can also qualify for the work permit, and then you're also allowed to work for more than 20 hours per week off campus, but this is just a temporary law that ends on the 31st of December 2023. You can then also apply for permanent residency after your graduation using the Canadian Experience Class process. Some of the major requirements for a study visa are that you need to have a proof of acceptance from the university or the institution that you've applied for. You need to, of course, prove your identity, so your identity document is a requirement. You need to make sure that you've got proof of financial support, which is typically a 4-month bank statement. Then you also need a letter of explanation, which clearly details why you want to study in Canada. You need to make this one as convincing as possible, and then you also need to show that you understand your responsibilities as a student, and you must also indicate and show that you're not just traveling to Canada so that you find an easy way not to go back to your home country. You must demonstrate that you also intend to go back to your home country afterwards. And then, of course, you'll need a medical examination. The processing fees are currently 150 Canadian dollars, and then the biometric fees right now are around 85 Canadian US dollars. The second major way to move to Canada is through a visitor visa. Visitor visas allow you to travel to Canada for business, tourism. You can also attend special events such as concerts and sporting events, and you can also just use it to visit your family and friends. Visitor visas are mostly 2-year visas, and you're allowed to visit for 6 months at a time. But sometimes this actually depends with the border official that will be stamping your passport when you arrive in the country. But typically you're allowed to visit for 6 months at a time. There's also what are called super visas, which are 5-year visitor visas or special visas for family members and citizens of other countries. Like, for example, right now with the situation in Ukraine, there are some special cases where people have been given 5-year visas, and there are also some additional cases where some people have been given 10-year visas. This just really just depends on your country and your current situation. And then your supporting documents for the visitor visa application depend on the reason why you're traveling to Canada, so they're not all the same. So some of the major requirements for a visitor visa are that you need to have a valid passport, you need to be in good health, so they will do a medical examination, you must not have a criminal record, you must have a good travel history, or you must just show your travel history. You must prove that you intend to go back to your home country. You must have strong home ties. This is very important. You need to prove that you're going to go back to your home country. So this could be either a business that's in your name, or house or property that's in your name, or job confirmation letters from your employer. Then, of course, you need to have proof of funds or your bank statement. And typically, they're looking for around 4,000 Canadian dollars per person. And then the application fees currently are around 100 Canadian dollars. The major disadvantage about visitor visas are that you're currently not allowed to work. You're just not allowed to work when you're on a visitor visa. However, right now there is a temporary law to allow visitors to work and then change your visa to a work permit. But this is only valid up until 28 February in 2025. And if you're watching this video right now, that gives us about 2 years. And I think it's a good time to do that process. To qualify for the work permit, you need to make sure that you're looking for LMI jobs. These are labor market impact assessment based jobs such as caregivers, software engineers, and doctors. There are different types of LMIA sponsorship opportunities. So it's always a good idea to first do your research to find if your particular skill is something that has been offered or that there are opportunities that are available for that. And you can actually do that by visiting ca.indeed.com, which is a job searching website. And from there, you'll be able to search, let's say, for example, just LMI sponsored jobs or just LMIA. And you also get a good list so that also sort of indicates whether there are opportunities for your particular skill set or not. So an LMI just simply confirms that you getting the job will not negatively impact or affect residents who are in Canada from getting jobs. So for your work permit requirements, if you then have the opportunity to get this, that you need a job offer letter, you need a contract, you need a copy of the LMIA, and then of course the LMIA number, which you'll get from your employer. The third and the most popular option is the permanent residency route through express entry. So express entry is a points-based system that allows skilled workers to apply for permanent residency in Canada. This is the longest process but the best way to move to Canada because it is not temporary and you immediately start enjoying the benefits that most Canadian citizens have. The express entry program is designed to attract highly skilled and experienced workers who can contribute to the Canadian economy. To see if you actually qualify for the express entry, all you have to do is visit canada.ca and then you can actually fill out one of the questionnaires that they have there and you'll be able to see whether you qualify or not. This will help you to calculate what is called a comprehensive ranking system score or your CRS score based on the answers that you provide. The results are not considered as a permanent score that will impact the outcome of your actual application, but more of a guide so that you can better understand how you rank right now and what you can do to improve your score as you prepare to apply for your permanent residency. So one of the major challenges about the express entry it's really just a point-based system, and I'll explain that as we go on. But the amazing thing is that once you qualify for express entry, then you can qualify for instant permanent resident status. But this is really, like I mentioned, based on your work experience, age, and English tests. There are 3 different types of express entry options. And the first one is the Canadian Experience class. The Federal Skilled Worker Program. This is mostly for international immigrants and you'll find that almost everybody applies for this one. And then the last one is the Federal Skilled Trades Program. If you have lower points, like I said, this is a point-based system. You can explore the Provincial Nominee Program, which allows a province to nominate you, but you'll have to live in that province for at least 2 years before you get allowed to move and stay in other areas. You can, however, then apply for citizenship after 3 years of staying in Canada once you've achieved your permanent resident status. So this is what the Express Entry CRS assessment looks like. It's based out of a score of 1,200 points. So the major points are based on this criteria, and these are based on your marital status, and this will decide the maximum points for the criteria mentioned below. So your marital status will impact how your points are going to be allocated for the other assessment criteria, such as your age. So for your age, the maximum score that you can get is 110. For your level of education, the maximum score that you can get is 150 points. For your language proficiency, which is your English, the maximum score you can get is 160 points. And then for your Canadian work experience, the maximum points that you can get is 80 points. And then your skills transferability, the maximum score that you can get for this area is 100 points. However, you do have then options to qualify for additional points, which you can then find on the website so that you can have a higher score. So typically a good score increases your chances of being given an invitation to apply so that you can then qualify for permanent residency. So the major requirements for you to be able to apply for express entry, I'm just going to give you a step-by-step here. So the total points that you need minimum will be 450 points, but this score is adjusted and determined by the government depending on the number of applicants that would have applied and then the average of those applicants. So for your outs, these can cost from anything around 200 Canadian US dollars, and then your band scores would be an 877, an 8 in listening, minimum 7 in reading, and minimum 7 in writing and speaking. And this will then be converted to what is called as CLB, or the Canadian Language Benchmark benchmark, and that average score would be 9. So the aim is to get 9 and above. Once you've done your IELTS, you'll also then need to do what is called an Education Credential Assessment, or an ECA. And this typically takes about 6 to 8 weeks and can cost around 285 Canadian dollars. After you get your IELTS and your ECA, then you need to create an EE profile, which is your express entry profile on the CIC website. Link is in the description box. And then you'll get 60 days to complete this application before you have to redo it all over again. So this profile actually allows you to be able to enter into the pool of candidates that will be waiting for the invitation to apply. So once you've created your EE profile, you then have to wait for a draw to reach your score. These are done during rounds of invitation, which happen every 3 to 4 weeks. So after you get your invitation to apply, you'll have 2 months to submit all your documents for each applicant. So for the proof of fund, this is where most people actually then fail or stumble. So the amount required for your proof of funds depends on the size of your family. So the main applicant needs to have more than 13,000 Canadian dollars in their account. And then for each and every additional family member, you'd need at least 3,500 Canadian dollars. And then once you've done this, then you can submit your documents and pay your immigration fee and wait for the passport to request. So your passport to request, or your PPR, is essentially them saying, we've received all your documentation, we're happy, and then we would like to now stamp your passport and you get your visa. And this takes about 2 to 4 months. And then once you get your PPR, you then submit your passport via VFS Global, and then you'll get your Canadian confirmation of PR. Once you get your confirmation of PR, you need to jump on that plane and go to Canada. The fourth option is applying for a work permit. In my opinion, this is probably one of the most challenging after the express entry route. You can apply for a work permit from within or outside Canada. This process is much cheaper than most of the other options, as you're not required to provide any proof of funds. You already got a job, so they know that you'll be able to look after yourself. To qualify, you however need to have high sought after skills, work experience, and academic qualifications, which most people may not be able to qualify for. So there are 2 types of work permits. There's the employer-specific work permit, where you've applied for a job, for example, let's say in McDonald's, and McDonald's is the one that have offered you a position, and they're the ones that have invited you to come and work. So you've got an employer-specific work permit. Then you've got what is called an open work permit. An open work permit allows you to be able to work for any employer within Canada, and you're not limited to working just for one employer as opposed to the first one. But this is actually one of the most difficult to get. However, the nice thing about getting your work permit is that your spouse and your children will be able to come to Canada with you, and they can work and they can study and live with you while you work in Canada. So the major requirements for a work permit include application fees, which are 155 Canadian dollars right now, and then the processing times actually vary by country. So for the employer-specific work permit, they typically just want, before anything else, a copy of your employment contract and one of the following, which could be a copy of your LMIA or an offer of employment number for LMIA exempt workers. We've already spoken about LMIA when we did the study visa option, so you can just go back to that one if you didn't quite understand what that was about. And then you've got your open work permit, and the requirements for that before anything else is that you need to work for any approved employer in Canada. So your employer must be on the eligibility list for them to be able to go through this process with you. And you can only get a work permit in specific situations. So this is not, like I mentioned before, the easiest route. So maybe, for example, you're an international student and you're already in Canada, or you are a dependent of someone who applied for a PR, or you are a spouse of someone who's on a work permit. These are typically some of the people that would qualify or be eligible for this type of work permit. And then, of course, you'd need to get a medical exam, but this is typically dependent on the job that you're actually trying to apply for. The last option on our list is family sponsorship. Canadian citizens and permanent residents can actually sponsor their family members to come to Canada as permanent residents. This includes spouses, common law partners, dependent children, parents, and grandparents. To be eligible, the sponsor must be able to provide financial support for their family and meet the minimum income requirements. So for this particular sponsorship process, what's really just important is just for the sponsor to be able to prove that they can support you financially if they decide decide that they want to apply for you to go to Canada. And then they also need to show and prove that they are able to make sure that you will not need social assistance from the government once you arrive in the country. So the major application requirements for the family sponsorship are the application fees for your spouse. It's typically around 1,000 Canadian dollars. And then for children, it's around 150 Canadian dollars, which I think is pretty cheap and it's fair. They are kids. And then for your processing times, these can actually vary according to who's being sponsored. So for example, you can have the application for children taking around 12 months. And then for your spouse or your partner, your grandparents or your parents, this can take anything up to 2 to 3 years for that process to be complete. And then of course, you'll need your biometrics, your medical exams for the people that are actually going to be traveling to Canada, the people who you're sponsoring for. Then of course, the passports, their birth certificates, marriage and divorce certificates, and national ID. And once again, this can actually then vary depending on who you're sponsoring or who is being sponsored. The requirements will change, but they're also available on the website, and I've put the link in the description box below. So I've come to the end of this video. It's clear that moving to Canada can be a life-changing experience, but it requires careful planning and consideration of the different visa options. And make sure that you comb through those requirements for each option to make sure that you choose the best one for your current situation. I really hope that you found this video to be useful and that you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to give it a big fat thumbs up so that the algorithm can push it to more people that might actually benefit from this video. And yeah, I guess that's it. All the best with your applications, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.